Greetings, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LBX777. In my last video, talking about, what was it, coincidences? Talking about you're not crazy. A lot of things have been happening behind the scenes, and I'm sure that watching the video, listening to the video, you can hear some hints of nervousness and anxiety in my voice, but there's a reason for that. I talk a lot about maintaining your frame, about confidence, about eliminating fear in what it is that you're doing. So, just like when you're a Christian and you start living a Christian lifestyle for real, not just for play, you start to realize that circumstances still happen to test whether or not you are really following your faith. Well, I preach a lot about eliminating fear and staying confident and turning every situation around in your favor. That doesn't mean opportunities don't present themselves to me. So I was having a conversation with a close friend of mine, and we were really talking about a lot of these coincidences and how a lot of these different things have been happening that just keep adding up and stacking up, that are so symbolic and just so intrusive and so personal that it's too much to be a coincidence, right? And the more I started to take into account how much of this stuff has really been happening to me, the more it began to kind of raise a bit of anxiety in me. To be honest, I had to leave the conversation so I can get my mind right. Long story short, by the end of that night, I ended up having a panic attack, right? It just came out of nowhere, completely sober. I haven't done any drugs or any alcohol or anything in a very long time. So this wasn't induced chemically or anything like that. This came, I believe, due to a certain type of spiritual attack. But in any case, as I begin to feel myself get reduced down to my core, to my fight or flight, to my lower chakras, my programming kicked in, right? All of these repetitious affirmations, things that I've been saying every day, all day, it kicked into gear. So instead of me being afraid and crumbling and panicking, sweating, crying, whatever people do when they get past their breaking point, the repetition of my personal programming kicked into overdrive and it overrid my human basic response. So I came out of that situation more empowered than when I went into it, right? So thinking on that experience and going to sleep and having another dream, because I didn't tell you guys this, but I really feel like I have been attacked within the past week in my dreams at least 4 times. And I have continued to see the faces of individuals that I know practice certain crafts. But every time these attacks happen in the dream, just like in the panic attack, my programming kicked in and overrid the system of automatic fear. In my dream, I was able to maintain my frame, to be ever vigilant, to exert my influence, to always be leading. Because I repeat this mantra to myself, because I believe in these principles, because I use these principles in my waking life. When I was assaulted on a level that it would be assumed I wouldn't have any defense, all those things that I talk about, I stand by. I don't talk theory. I don't guess. I don't imagine and pretend. Everything that I tell you in these videos, I've been doing for a while before I tell you in this video. I don't just have an idea and cut on a camera, right? I'm not a beginner, right? I'm not intermediate. I'm advanced. And I can proudly say that because I've been doing this for over 20 years at this point. And I take my study very seriously. Everything is a test. And at this point, my mind has been transformed into the Philosophers Stone. And that isn't being said to brag. That's being said to illustrate that this is the goal, to turn your mind into Philosopher's Stone, to be able to turn anything into gold. That includes your fears, to turn your fears into weapons, right? To turn unicorns into a personal army, right? to turn your video game characters, your comic book characters, and all your things that you grew up with into symbols, basically, that enhance your life, enhance your well-being. So I realized that I never told my story of how I really started working with the Goetia and why I've been going so hard on the Goetia. I didn't tell it because the intentions weren't always the most noble, right? But see, I think what saved me is that not only was I seeking a personal gain, before the loss that I had, I understood that you had to be pure of heart. I understood that my intentions during study had to be for the sake of study, right? And by the end of this journey, I really learned and realized that my intentions had to be for the sake of study, not for material gain. But anyways, growing up, not really growing up, but probably in my teen years, I began to read the Satanic Bible and the Necronomicon and different books like that because the music I was listening to influenced me to check these topics out, right? A lot of the rock and roll heavy metal music brought these subjects up. So I went ahead and bought these books. I wanted to know. So in the back of my head, I'm being crammed with all this information. Never really acting upon it. I tried a few love spells here and there, but nothing really serious. However, I did maintain a relationship with multiple spirits, multiple entities. I used to have an angel that would correspond with me. It was actually more than one, right? Because imaginary friends as a child, these are actually entities that we are in contact with that help us grow and develop. And if you had an imaginary friend in the past that your parents told you to get rid of, you can reestablish that contact if you so desire. You know the symbols that are represented by that imaginary friend, right? Mine, for example, inhabited a teddy bear. So I knew that when I had that bear with me, I could communicate with it on a deeper level, and it communicated back. I was a child, and a lot of children still have this. This is why imagination is so important. But anyways, so the magic was established in my head, or at least the option of magic was established in my head. At that point, I haven't really tried anything. A little down the line, life started to really get unpleasant. Not to the point where I was being abused or beaten or anything, but just things weren't going my way. Social life wasn't that great. Romance life was non-existent. All my dreams of being a creator and an artist had no opportunities to flourish. So in the back of my head, it kept popping up. Maybe you should try magic. Maybe you should try spells. Maybe you should try magic. And I refused it. Didn't really want to waste my time on hocus pocus. Besides, I didn't want to go to hell. I was a Christian. So after years of hearing this call and years of really doing the inner work of developing myself and realizing, you know what? No one is going to save me. No one is going to help me. No one understands me. I gotta really, if I'm going to do anything, I've got to get up on my own feet and do it myself. So every now and then, I would do a strange Google search, right? I would search for conspiracy theories. I would search for spirits and possessions and demons and all that stuff, and it would interest me. But again, I never really took it too seriously. That is until I came across Bobby Hemet. Now, at the time, being a Christian, it did scare me to hear about these concepts, but because I had a background in this study of magic, because I studied a lot of occult books and dark magic books, I knew it existed. So the terms and the phrases like Baphomet didn't really scare me. Concepts like, is God really the devil, didn't really scare me because these were already in my head from the past. So I began to accept the idea that maybe this guy might be onto something. And I began listening, and he became my digital mentor. Right? I began to just binge watch his videos. Back in the early days of YouTube, with him being on there, his videos would be there in full 8-hour clips, not these 1-hour clips that you watch and have to pay for the rest. Like, people would upload the whole thing, and I would be there watching them. I'd download them, and if I had to go on a trip or some type of doctor's appointment or whatever in another city, I'd listen to the lectures along the way. It got so bad that sometimes, I'd be with my ex, and instead of talking on this car trip, I'm sitting here listening to my headphones on YouTube. But anyways, after a while of actually working with this magic and trying a few things out, I began to venture off into the darkest of the dark, because apparently the dark side was where it was at. So I went to the clip-off, and there was a lot of fear. Oh, first, let me go back. I worked with the Necronomicon first as far as evocation. So I really evoked a lot of these spirits, and you can hear about some of my experiences in the previous video about developing your psychic senses with the Goetia. Now, after evoking certain entities, I began to really feel the presence of another intelligence, and it was kind of overwhelming, kind of scary, right? Really experiencing that it wasn't just me here, it was another thing, another intelligent thing. So after working with it a few times, I kind of got scared and put it down. I'll just be honest. This was a few years ago. A little bit later on, I ventured into the clip-off, and a very similar thing happened. Doing a lot of the rituals that I was reading in books, a lot of areas in my life began to fall apart, right? I began to lose my job. At the same time, I lost my vehicle, and then eventually I lost my fiance that I was engaged with. And it was all around the same time of working with the clip-off. And that was a very painful experience, because I knew inside that it was related to my work with the clip-off. But by that time, I was listening to Brother Panic, and I was really starting to practice and enforce the elimination of fear, the ownership of this spiritual technology. So I kept working with it, despite the fact that I knew it was tearing things up. I come to find out later that it was working to remove things in my life that I didn't need, things that were holding me back from my true purpose. But unfortunately, I was stuck in that zone. I was stuck in the zone of lack. I didn't have the comfort of my previous life. Waking up to the person that I loved, having a stable home, a stable job, and a stable way to and from work. I missed all that comfort. I was left in the wilderness, right? And I knew that this magic took it away, so I wanted to use the magic to get it back. So after working with the clip-off, I decided to move to the Goetia, because I read that these were demonic spirits that could help you get what you want. So at this time, I was in a very bad place. Desperate, depressed, lonely, isolated. It was awful. And at that point, I was an alcoholic, drinking a whole lot every single day. Like, you wouldn't believe how much. Every single day. Punishing 6-packs, punishing 18-packs, right? Punishing leaders. But anyways, I was still working with the Goetia, and I made it a point to work through all 72, if that's what it took, just to get her back, right? So that's exactly what I did. I worked through all 72, one at a time, trying to find the one that would get me the results that I needed to get my life back together. So I came across Citri, number 12. Actually, no, I came across Furfur, and that's when I really first started to have results. And if you look at my earlier videos, you'll see where I was talking about working with Furfur, and even a hurricane came through our city, and working with Furfur to protect the home, that hurricane just skipped over the house that we were staying in, right? So that really built up my confidence in working with these spirits. Next, I worked with Citri, and Citri really got me the results that I wanted. So again, that boosted my confidence working with these spirits. So since more and more of these entities began to work for me, I began experiencing more success. I began experimenting with more of them, to the point that I got through all 72. And I kind of made it as a personal diary to start recording my experiences. And I figured, hey, somebody else might be working with these things. They might be able to pick up a few tips. So that's when the YouTube started, to record my results and to help those who may be experiencing the same thing. Not for views, not for followers, not to build a religion, not to start a new King Payman mindset, not to sell anything, but to share my results with those who might need it. And in the beginning, nobody was really watching. I had maybe 5 to 6 people. Shout out to Giscard Camille. Thank you for still rocking with me, my bro. So I had success, and I was getting really good at it. And the focus was starting to get off of getting laid and getting my old life back. The focus began more into developing myself and developing these powers and abilities and figuring out how to explain them in a way that I can teach a 5-year-old, so to speak. Not to literally teach a 5-year-old, but to explain it to people on any level, whether it's a super basic Christian or somebody who has been working with magic a little bit, or someone who is an expert who just hasn't tried the Goetia, right? I was working on simplifying my message to the point that I could communicate clearly to anyone. And needless to say, I did a pretty great job. So here's the deal. Somewhere along the line, Citri stopped working. Things changed and this magic wasn't working anymore. So I was trying to figure out how to fix this issue. What I didn't know at the time was I was way too invested in my results. I was using the Goetic system as a tool instead of developing a relationship with these entities. So people who ask me, how do I work with King Payment? How do I work with this spirit or that spirit? My first answer to them is always, you got to develop a relationship with the entity first. If a person can tell, if I can tell that you're just talking to me to get something out of me and you're going to leave, of course, a spirit can tell that same thing. So you're not going to go into it looking to get something and then peace out. They're not even going to waste their effort on you because you're not ready to work with these spirits. Like I said, I wanted a result, but I also at the same time had a background of understanding that I'm studying for the sake of studying, not just studying to get something. So that's why I was having success. And as I began to leave my lust for results and focus more on honing my craft and studying and practicing, I began to get even better at this thing. I began to work and branch out with other spiritual systems, and I came across the shimha mepharage, the corresponding system of 72 angels. And this time approaching them, it wasn't so much to gain something, but it was to add to my skill set, to my repertoire, to really figure out how this works, right? This is where the unicorns come from, the angels of the shimha mepharage. So, I've had a lot of ups and downs with this thing. Working with Andros, that kind of went wild and crazy. Working with King Payman, that kind of went into another direction. And working with specific angels really started to push me, closer to the deep end. But I would always reel it back in because I'm not doing this for something or against something. I'm doing this for the study. And that's what really kept me balanced. So lately I've been working on a way to simplify this system so that I can clearly teach it to anybody. And what I found, it's more about the mindset than it is about the actual spirits that you're working with. I have no restrictions and no boundaries in my mind at this point. I can work with anything, living or dead, and use it effectively. I figured that out. And it all has to do with a little thing called psionics. That's right. But anyways, the last video I made was about the coincidences and are they listening and how everything, do you feel like everything that you're thinking is even being listened to by maybe even 5G or AI or some machine, because it seems like you keep getting ads, you keep having synchronicity, things keep popping up. Well, on one hand, yes, you can get paranoid and think that it's the 5G tapping into your mental system. Or you can recognize that you're starting to tap into a special ability here and you're being able to have results now. And it's really hard to explain because no one else is talking about it, right? No one else is doing it to the point where they can have a discussion with you about it. Well, guess what? There are many of us who are doing this. You're not the only one. So you're not going crazy. I'll say that again. You're not going crazy. You're entering into a new sphere of ability. And I found that I've been teaching and practicing that this whole time. So I think one of my favorite examples is, again, it's mundane, but working with different spirits as a channel, I can remember having this specific fantasy about this model that was, my favorite model at the time. It was a very specific twerking video, right? And I mean, after a few months, it actually appeared on the internet, down to the same outfit, down to the same scenario, and very similar music that I was thinking about. And that has always stuck with me as being really cool, because I know for a fact I've been thinking about this intentionally for a very long time, and then it manifests. I have no physical contact with this person, but it seems as if I influenced that person to do a certain thing. So after my goetic success and going back to experiences like that, I began to connect the dots and see how this thing works. So, look, I'll just get right to it. I'm very excited to present a new level of the Magus Academy. All right, I want to teach this to people. I want to invite you to join a new course that I'm opening up, and it will be teaching psionics and how it ties into evocation and working with spirits. Okay, now check this out. I don't need everybody to join this course. I only want people who are serious, people who have already had success with this, who can't explain it, and who want to get better, who want to hone their craft. I'm looking for someone who has had experiences with these coincidences, right? Thinking about a certain thing and it happening in real life. And this has been happening more than just once or twice. This is starting to happen more and more and more, right? You're seeing 1111, you're seeing 333. You're thinking of a movie idea and the movie comes out, right? You're thinking of a video game idea and the video game comes out, right? You're thinking of different ways to make music and another artist pretty much takes your idea. What's going on? How is this working, right? Is the government tapped into my brain? No. You are pushing these ideas into reality. And I'm developing a course where I want to teach how to hone this craft. So if you're someone who has had these experiences and you want to know how to make them better and stronger, how to amplify them, there's a link below where you can submit your email address and I will let you know when this course is open. Let me know if you are serious about this, not if you're just curious and think it's a cool idea. Someone who's willing to put in the work to really hone their skills and get good at this thing. All right, the time has come. The energy is here for us to do this and do it seriously. So like I said, the link is below. Click that. Let me know if you're interested, because if I get enough people, I'll go ahead and roll out the course. So, exciting times. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Peace.